What's up, guys? Welcome to the Do It Movement podcast. This is your host, Martine Jackson, and I've built my 6-figure, soon to be 7-figure, massive real estate business through commercial investing, rental investing, and wholesaling in Virginia. After college, I worked a series of jobs that I absolutely hated and decided to take life into my own hands. What my journey has shown me is one very important thing. Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. Each week, I bring you a powerful guest or tip to unravel the real estate game, and my challenge to you is that you take some of that knowledge and do something with it. The Do It Movement is here to help you create the life you desire through real estate. Now let's get to it. Hello, today Do It Movement listeners. This is your host, Martine Jackson. Or should I start the podcast on what's really, really, really good? We got the millennial entrepreneur. It's your boy.
It's your
podcast today. Earon Bevans, man, how you doing?
I'm doing amazing, Martine. I'm doing phenomenal. I can't even lie. I'm dumb excited to be on your show right now. I'm putting it on the IG for the people.
Hey, I'm excited to have you on here because your energy is on 5 million. Like, I don't know anybody that's more energized than you are. And your podcast is live, and I love it. You have such great guests. You had Sean Terry on there, some other great people. Man, you're killing it. But for the people that may not know who you are, or, just share your story.
Awesome. Martine, I'm so excited. I was just telling you before we started recording that I feel like our energy is just really, really good. You know what I mean? Because I immediately got excited whenever I was talking to you. And I'm always nervous before I jump on a podcast. I always am.
Really?
I always am. But I operate better that way, I find. You know what I mean? Very, very uncomfortable. So a little bit about myself, me coming into entrepreneurship. So what exactly do you want to know? What should I tell you about?
Well, I guess let's talk about why'd you get into real estate. Let's talk about that.
Why I got into real estate?
Mm-hmm.
So I was painting. I was recently married. I was 23 years old, and going into marriage, I did not understand finances and how that worked. I had other parts of my life were together, you know what I mean? But financially, I wasn't, you know what I mean? So I had a conversation, long story short, with my wife. And it's one of those moments, Martine, where I feel like life gives you kick in the growing moments.
Right.
Man or woman, right?
Right.
And how you respond to those moments will determine the trajectory of your life. And that one of those moments for me came when my wife said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something." And so when she formally brings it up like that, I'm like, okay, it's gonna be this is a real conversation,
Right.
And she said, "I don't like how I'm starting to feel about you." And I was like, dang.
That was real.
Yeah, I was like, and bear in mind, we're recently married. We're like a year married. You know what I mean? And so that you don't want to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that a year into like marriage. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I feel like the energy is good. I feel like we're good. Like, what's the issue? And she said, and by the way, my wife has always been an entrepreneur. She owns at the time it was a hair salon. It was a hair studio. Now she's a bridal hair and makeup artist. And she's always been a successful entrepreneur.
Right.
Okay. So she said, I don't like that. I feel like over the last 6 months, over the last year, over the last 2 years, I feel like I've grown, but I feel like you're kind of stagnant. You know what I mean? And at the time I was painting, and not like artistic painting, right? I was painting cabinets and walls and things like that. This was her point. This was because it wasn't necessarily about just the money, but it was how I managed money and my view of money, and how I went about procuring it.
Right.
And this is what she said. She said, I don't like the fact that I feel like you're not even trying to tap into your potential. And I was like, oh. Now, when somebody tells you something like that, as a man, it okay, so we get hurt feelings, right? But see, a lot of us, the way we grow up is the way you respond to hurt feelings is anger. That's how, because now that gives you a sense of control. And so I don't want to do this. I don't, you know what I mean? Why would I, who are you? You know what I mean?
Right.
That's how, as men, a lot of us, the role model that we got. And so that's how I responded until I realized that she wasn't like calling me out. She wasn't humiliating me. She wasn't like blasting me on social media. Like a dignified, respectable woman, like a queen, she was approaching me, you know, as a, you know, one-on-one, saying, I feel like you're not living up to your potential. So I know that's a whole thing, but
this is good. I like this.
That was
legit. People need to hear it.
I think so. Yeah, I think so, because I just saw something on social media today, and some of these are kind of corny, but this one was good. This one was good. It said a good queen. Oh, life is like chess. So it says like men. So it's like calling attention to men. Life is like chess. The queen protects her king. Right? Now, I believe that the king is to protect the queen. You know what I mean? But the reality is, if you look at any good relationship, man, the queen is always on the low key. They're the ones that's the number one confidant, right? That's the boardroom right there, you know.
Right.
And so anyway, at that moment, after I came to my senses, I was like, you know what? She's actually helping me level up. I started thinking about ways that and now it was a pride thing. Now I let my pride say, okay, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take what she did, and I'm going to be the illest. I'm going to be the baddest. I'm going to make her look up to me. Because I didn't like the fact that because basically what she was saying was, I'm leveling up and you're not.
Right.
So I was like, okay, bet. All right. So
I'm not about to take this.
Yeah. I'm going to level up and I will be the role model. You know what I mean? And that's the sense of pride that I have. So I started looking for different ways, and her dad had said, and he knew I was looking for different avenues. I knew I didn't want to go to college because I'm like, why would I do that? I dropped out of high school. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like studying and reading and I don't like doing what people tell me to do.
Right.
So it's like the biggest and baddest thing I could do is in sales and building my own business. And last I checked, I don't have to get a license to build a business. I don't have to go to school for it. I can literally just say, I want to do it.
Right.
And so I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. And then I went to a Rich Dad Poor Dad seminar, and I found out that you could assign contracts.
Right.
You know, and this guy, you know, he had this whole story about $10,000. And he made it in 2 weeks because he got a property under contract and sold his interest in the property through that contract and made 10 G's in a couple weeks. And I was like, that's it. I was sold. I was like, if this is real, every element of that is something I think that I could master and scale and turn into a business and you know what I mean, scale.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I learned about wholesaling from reading a book from Sean Terry. How to Quit Your Job in 19 weeks, right? And I was like, wait a second. You can get things under contract and sell the contract? What?
So it was actually a Sean Terry book? I didn't even know he had books.
It was an ebook. Someone gave it to me for free. They sent me the link and I read it and I was like, wait a second. Because my dad used to always tell me, hey, you should get into real estate. And I'm like, with what money? With what money?
Yeah.
So I read that book and I felt like you could assign contracts and I was like, what? This is like a game changer. So I know how you felt when you were in that Rich Dad seminar.
Yeah. Were you already an entrepreneur or were you like
I was. That's what my dad kept telling me to get into real estate, because he was like, I noticed you got the little entrepreneur bug like me.
Yeah.
Maybe you should try this. And I'm like, nah, like not really that interested until, you know, like things happen in your life.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, am I just going to accept this, or am I going to do something to change it?
Yeah.
So I decided I wanted to change it. So I like that you shared that story. That's real.
Yeah.
You had a conversation. She's like, look, get it together, man. Get it.
Yeah.
And you got it together, and you just like probably really surpassed whatever she thought you were going to do.
I have, and I say that with pride. I say that with pride. Yeah.
So that's awesome. So I've noticed, maybe, I don't know how long ago it was, but you had set a goal for yourself so you can hit 6-figure months. Yeah. And when I spoke to you last, you said you've been hitting it. So that's awesome. And I know a lot of people, myself included, have goals like this. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about, what did you have to change? Like, what are some practical steps that you had to take for you to get to that level?
So just to clarify, we've come close a lot, and we've only hit and exceeded that goal once. Okay. So the goal now, so here's the next goal. The next goal is to consistently hit the 6 figures. And so that leads into something that I need to change. So there's two aspects, there's two answers to your question. The first part is how did we get to where we could hit the 6-figure month, right? And then once we did, it was like, okay, how do we scale it so that we consistently do and we can sustain 6-figure months throughout the year? Right. But how we got to that point, number one is belief. That's the number one thing. You have to understand and believe that you can. Right. If you don't believe that you can, if you're watching this and you're watching this for instruction on how to get there, you might as well turn it off now.
Right. It's a waste.
Because we're about to drop some value on you, but your engine is not ready. Right? Your engine is not ready to sustain this journey. So you have to know that you can do it, and anybody can, in virtually any market in the United States. Right. Okay, you can hit 6 figures a month, and I'll be real with y'all, it's actually not that hard. It's actually not that hard. You know what I mean? In terms of complicated steps. So how we got there, number one, it was belief, and then it was being willing to make sacrifices in the short term for the vision. Okay, you know what I mean? Let's talk about that. So the biggest thing is, all right, so I already knew the goal was I want to hit 6 figures in 1 month, right? So that became the one thing that I was constantly obsessed with. So when you're obsessed with something, the candy and all this stuff now doesn't mean anything, right? So any money that I got, I was stacking it away. I was making sure I was paying bills, right? I was making sure I was paying bills. That's first and foremost. You don't sacrifice your bills for your business, because without that, eventually your business is gonna die, right? So it was paying bills, and then stacking up for the business, and then I would take that money and throw it back into the business. It's basic economics, right? That's how you build a business. But so many of us, if you're like me and you didn't grow up where with a family that was actually operating a business, Fortune 500 company, you know what I mean? And you have these arrogant goals, you know what I mean? You guys, a lot of these things we find out trial and error. And this is why a lot of businesses don't succeed, because during the error part, right? Right. So it was constantly throwing money back in the business, and so I've been in business now. We're about to hit 17 months. Okay. Right? I'm still talking about my business in baby terms, right? 17 months.
Yeah, how old is your kid? 36 months.
Yeah, exactly. I want to use months as long as possible because it's such a good story. You know what I mean? It's such a good story. But we're 17 months now, and I've gone broke 4.5 times in business. I say 4.5 because 4 are actually like, hey babe, look, this is gonna work. This is gonna work. All right.
Right.
But I have to dump this money into the business. I know I can do it. All
Mm-hmm.
right. You just got to trust, and we're going to have to live off your checking account for a little bit. Okay.
Right.
Had to sell her. I had to sell her on those. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it happened. And so it wasn't like going broke accidentally, like MC Hammer broke. It was like making a crap ton of money in our first round, and
Mm-hmm.
then saying, I believe in this. I believe in
Right.
this. So taking that money and throwing it back into marketing, back into whatever is necessary, education,
Mm-hmm.
whatever was necessary to continue leveling up. And every time we've done that, so like in like third or fourth month in business, we hit like 64K.
Mm-hmm.
But it was because we set the goal to do that, and we dumped the little bit of, a few $1,000s that I had into it, into marketing and systems, and then actually worked those, grinded it out,
Right.
and then hit 64. All right, then we took that and dumped it
Dumped
back
it.
in, and the next thing in 8 months we hit 180,000. All right, then we took what business revenue we had, and then we dumped it back in, and then within 12 months we hit a $250,000 in assignment
Mm-hmm.
fees. All right,
Mm-hmm.
and then we took that, dumped it back in, and then within month 13, month 14, we hit our first six-figure month, which was 113,000 plus in one calendar month, closed and
Right.
funded in one calendar month, right? So now it's just playing the game. We're just playing a
Right.
doubles game.
Right.
That's it. So, second part, that's how we got to where we were, right? It was belief, and then it was making the short-term sacrifices in order to scale up to this point, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Second part is, once we hit the six-figure month, it's like, that's cool and all,
Right.
but you start to recognize that there's a Bible proverb that when speaking about money, it says it grows wings and flies, right? And that's how money is.
Right.
Money grows wings and flies. So you have to make sure that those little birds, those dollar bills, while they're in your coop, you have to make sure they're laying eggs before they fly, because it will fly.
Right.
The Bible says, and no one's ever argued the Bible and won.
Right.
And it told you it grows wings and flies. So make sure those birds lay eggs now. So here's what we found. We found that in order to get to where we were literally just taking money and throwing it against the wall and hoping that some of it stuck. But once we hit the 113, it was like, oh snap, I'm not projected for 100 plus next month, and I'm not projected for 100 plus in the next 2 months. Why? How did I get to here? So I hit my goal. Like, I've made so much money, right? And I've hit my goal. But now, and it was literally, Martine, it was within 15, 20 minutes of being at title company, collecting this money, and my whole squad is celebrating, you know what I mean? And I'm kind of sitting back, and I'm like, yo, we're not projected for this next month.
Right.
We're not projected for this for the rest of this quarter. So there's an issue here. There's an issue. And I realized that the issue was systems and processes. Systems and processes. Okay? And so the more I started to research, and guys, by the way, Martine, I'm new to this.
Right.
I'm new to systems and process. I know how to hustle. I know how to grind. I know how to stay up late. I know how to get up early. Like, I know how to make sacrifices. I know how to execute on what I'm saying. But I've never built a system and process that's sustainable without me, that I can leverage, where I'm not working because by the way, I not only need to build a six-figure business that can sustain itself, but I have to be able to take care of my wife.
Right.
I got to be able to take care of my family, and I want to enjoy life.
Right.
All right. So now I'm like, man, I can't. There's got to be a better way. So I started doing research on systems and processes. How can I create, if you know anything, the cash flow quadrant?
Right.
right? How do I go from being an S, because I'm now an S, I'm a well-paid S, to a B, a business owner where the business is actually operating without me, right? Where I can be doing the things I love, like this, Martine, what we do, educating people, sharing with people. I have a passion for this. And it came down to systems and processes. And the more I researched, Martine, the more I found that the heavy hitters in this business, like the killers, like the Sean Terrys, the Scott Utsises out there, the Kongs, King Kong, right? These guys, they don't talk like, so the B quadrant wholesalers don't talk like S quadrant wholesalers.
Right.
You know what I mean? S quadrant wholesalers, the way, and basically S quadrant wholesalers, you're talking about 95% of every wholesaler who's ever been a wholesaler. Right? So that's your S quadrant. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm doing, right? But you S quadrant though.
Right.
You know? And for those that don't know, I'm sure Martine has already educated your audience, but the S quadrant, these are the ones who, if you leave on vacation, your business is dead.
Right.
Or at the very least, it's operating, it's puttering, it's not operating at the same pace as it would if you were here monitoring it, nursing it, nurturing it. You know what I mean? That's the S quadrant. The B quadrant wholesalers, these are guys that leave and with very, very minimal base touch on their business, and they come back to their business and their business is better.
Right.
That's B quadrant. That's where I'm trying to be. And those guys, they talk differently than the S quadrant guys. Those guys talk about systems and processes. The S quadrant guys always want to talk about what's the next best marketing channel. Right? That's always the question. What's the script y'all use? What list do y'all call?
Right.
What marketing channel? RVM or cold calling? Man, I don't like cold calling. I do this. I do door knocking. I do da 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 da. The B quadrant, they're like, do y'all understand? Like, while that is a valid conversation, do you understand that that's 2% of the conversation? These guys are talking 2%. If they have 100 minutes, they've only spent 2 minutes talking about lists and marketing channels. The rest are talking about systems and processes, how they can leverage softwares and technologies, how they can hire people in place who are going to be doing these things without them, and following a system and a process to get these things done without them.
Right.
So that's where I'm trying to be. That's where I'm trying to be right now, Martine. That's the goal now. That's the goal. So the goal now is create a six-figure a month business. And the way I'm doing that is I'm learning about systems and processes.
Okay, cool. So what is something that's really helped you with learning systems and processes?
Yo, I know you're gonna ask me about the book later, but I gotta tell people that I'm not coming up with this stuff. I took it from this book. So the book is called Traction. I recommend every person who's in this business, whether you're a realtor, wholesaler, because these principles apply universally. These are universal laws of business, right? But especially if you're a wholesaler, you should be thinking about how you're going to create a business, you know?
Right.
And the book says there are 6 components to every business, and those components make up what's called the EOS, the Entrepreneur's Operating System. And by the way, systems equals life. So your without your cardiovascular system, there's no life. Without your respiratory system, there's no life. Right? Without your endocrine system or endocrine system, there's no life, right? So systems equal life. Same thing in business. There are 6 components to every single successful business. And this is what it says. It says it's vision, data, processes, people, issues, and traction. And Martine, as I started learning about this, right? I'm only on page 57. All right. So y'all are seeing the journey.
Right. I like it because I've picked up traction so many times.
Have you?
And I've just been like, damn, this is a hard read. Like, this is boring.
You're right. No, Martine, you're right. You're right. That's why I was saying, oh, go ahead. My bad.
No, I just want to mention one thing. And it's kind of a plug for another episode that's coming out later. But so I hired someone to help me like create my systems and processes because I was struggling reading that book.
I love it.
And the person I hired, she agreed to be on the podcast, so she'll be on later on, like a couple months from now. But yeah, like you're talking. This is a lifeline of a business, systems and processes. You want to be self-employed, or do you want to own a true business?
Yep.
So you preaching? Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt. You preaching?
No, you're good. You're good. And I just want to say for those of the audience that y'all follow Martine, the fact that she's willing to put on her business consultant to share with y'all is crazy because you're paying her money to help your business, but you're gonna give her away for free to help her drop some value and encourage people that way. That's major. That's major. That's right. I love it.
Yeah, she changed my business around so much. Like, we're so grateful. My team still talks about her, saying, "Oh my God, like we're just so much more organized."
Yes.
Because first it's just like, "Oh, do this." Well, maybe sometimes we do it like this, and sometimes we do it like that. Like, you gotta be firm. You want to have the McDonald's system, or do you want to be flipping burgers in your kitchen? Like, you need. I
love it. Come on, as you say those things, I'm getting butterflies because I'm like, I feel it so heavy.
Right.
I feel it so heavy, and it's true. And and for us, it would even be like, okay, for this, undisclosed period of time, we're taking properties outside of this geographic location. It's not working. Let's go back. You know what I mean? As opposed to having a set thing, right? Until you're ready to scale or until you're ready to change, and you're just being, and so that goes into what I was saying though. As I was, and by the way, it is a hard read. It's a hard read because it was just like I was saying, Martine, it's something that needs to be studied.
Right.
It's like the Bible. You can't just be like, man, I want to be entertained. Let me just read and just start reading the Bible. Like, nah. Otherwise it's going to be, it's boring. No, it's not boring. You got to study it.
Right.
You got to make sure you're in the right space. You got to have your lighting, have a cup of coffee and say, hey, turn off the phone for 2 hours and say, I'm studying now.
Right.
I'm not snorkeling. I'm scuba diving.
Right.
and then once you dig into it, you're like, yo, this is some life-changing stuff. Like, so that's why I was telling Martine, y'all, that I always plug a pen in this book because it's a subconscious reminder that when I pick it up, I'm not here to read it. I'm here to study it.
Right.
You know? So what I found in studying this book is it has you grade your business honestly.
Right.
It forces you. It asks you questions about your business, and you have to answer honestly. And then you answer each one with a grade, how well you're doing between one and such and such. And then you take that, and then it gives you a little formula to calculate the percentage of how your EOS, your entrepreneur's operating system, is performing. So just like you can do a heart scan and say your heart is pumping at 32% capacity, that should give you an emotion. You know, your lungs you're only able to breathe at 32% capacity. That should give you an emotion. Okay, what I got to do to change, right? Same way in business, and I rated 32% in my business.
That was an eye opener.
Come on, man! It was like it evoked an emotion. So it did two things for me, Martine. It did two things, and so I promise you, I'm answering your question. I just want to give you the context. But it did two things for me. It pissed me off and it humbled me because I'm like, man, I'm the millennial entrepreneur. I'm encouraging people about, you know what I mean? I got these goals, and my business is only operating at 32% capacity. So it was humbling. It was frustrating. It pissed me off. Second thing, and by the way, this is 2.5, 3 weeks ago. All right. The second thing it did is it big time stroked my ego.
Mm.
Big time stroked my ego because I was like, yo, look at what we've done only operating at 32%.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, can you imagine what happens when we're operating at 50%?
Right.
You know what I mean? What's going to happen when we're operating at 55%? Look, God forbid you be my competition in my market when I'm operating at 85%.
Right.
I can't wait to compete.
Right.
You know what I mean? I want to compete in my marketplace. You know what I mean?
Right.
And let's not even talk about 90%, 95%. You know what I mean?
Right.
By that point, it's going to be a whole different persona here. You know what I mean? So round two of this interview is going to be crazy.
Right.
But the biggest takeaway, I know that's a lot of rah-rah, but all of that to say, out of all 6 components, right? If you wanted to distill it down to like actual practical, how can we use this? As I was going through each one of those components, over vision, data, process, people, issues, and traction, I realized that the only 2, Martine, that I was doing well at was vision and people. Because for in regards to vision, that they say vision is the first thing in your business.
Right.
It's you got to believe, and then you have to have a specific direction where you're going. You have to have a specific goal. You have to have a specific target. You have to have core values. You have to know who you are, right? Drake wasn't just entertaining when he created that track, Know Yourself, right? You don't reach that success without understanding your core values and knowing where you're going. So that's vision. And I've always been crystal clear, you know, no compromising, you know, not that I'm perfect, because I made a whole lot of mistakes, you know what I mean? Morally, financially, you know what I mean? But I've always been crystal clear, and the company and the people that we've been with have always been crystal clear. And so with the vision in place and the right people, right? No losers allowed. It's either you're about it, it's either you're hungry, it's either you're gonna sacrifice with the squad, and you're gonna match. You don't have to match my personality, but you gotta match my passion.
Right.
We've always had those 2 things, and with those 2 things, even with no proper data, like not measuring our metrics properly, not knowing any of our numbers, right? How much are we spending per deal? I don't know what. You know what I mean? Processes, obviously no processes, no issues. The issue component means that as a business, you need to be a problem-solving machine, right? And I love the author of Traction says in the issues part, he says, your business will only be as successful and grow as big as its ability to solve issues. And so that requires CEOs out there. A lot of us, we're very prideful people. We're very passionate and competitive people. So it's hard. If you're not my coach, then why are you trying to call me out kind of people? You know what I mean? So you got to get rid of that. As a CEO, you got to be vulnerable. And when your people tell you, yo, you suck.
Right.
Why are you getting me leads late? Or why is this? You said we were going to do this. How comes we're not doing it that way? You know, when your people call you out, you got to be vulnerable and be like, dang, I got to take the L on that. Like, my bad. You're right. And let's solve that problem. How do we solve it? So instead of being like taking ourselves too seriously, prideful CEOs, we're vulnerable CEOs that are constantly like, all right, world, tell me, all right, squad, tell me where I'm going wrong. And then let me adjust and be humble enough to move, because that's how you grow. And there's a whole section on that called issues.
Right.
And then traction, of course. Traction is your ability to hold everything and everyone accountable at specific time periods. Like everybody in your organization has to have something that they do that they're accountable for. Right. Otherwise, why are they there? Right? They have to have something that they are accountable for. It has to be a metric to that.
Mm-hmm.
right? There has to be a way to measure that, and then you have to ascertain whether or not I'm going to be measuring that metric every 2 days, every 3 days, every week. Is it going to be every Monday? But it's going to be on this same day at every time throughout the week with this person or this team that I measure this metric, and that's called traction. And I realized the only things I had was people and vision. So now we're on a road to implementing the other 4.
Well, you had two good ones though. People and vision, that's huge. If you're able to lead people, that's a enormous skill to have.
I agree. I'm huge.
Okay.
I'm huge on John Maxwell. Like your business and organization will only be as great as your leadership is.
So what are some things that you notice, like, because you've hit the 6-figure month, what are some things that you notice that you need to implement and put in your process so you can continuously hit those 6-figure months? Like, what are some things you did differently? I know you sacrificed, but what are some things, like, did you hire different people? Did you set higher goals?
To get to the 6-figure month? To get to the 6-figure month, the biggest thing is setting the goal. I know it sounds corny, man. I know it sounds corny. That was the biggest thing, because at this point, bear in mind, y'all, I didn't have any systems to get to the 6-figure month. Right? So it was setting the goal. And by the way, the goal was even bigger than the 6-figure month. That was like the short-term goal. On about 4 or 5 months ago, we set the goal to hit $500K in assignment fees in the next 6 months. Next month, we're coming up on that 6th month. All right. And we're closing in, baby. We're closing in. You know what I mean? So I think you have to have, I think Traction calls it a BHG. So I think like a big hairy goal. But you got to make that goal arrogant. Like, it's got to be disrespectful. You know what I mean? Now everybody's arrogant and disrespectful. And guys, I'm using arrogant, like, you know, tongue in cheek. But everybody's arrogant and disrespectful goal is going to be different. You know what I mean, Martine? But it's got to be that way to you. And then reverse engineer that. So we said in 6 months, I'm going to hit 500K. We're going to hit 500K, but we're also going to work our tails off in order to get it.
Right.
So that led into our short-term goal, was that we want to hit our 6-figure month. You know what I mean? So actual things we implemented, it was literally it was taking all the money that we had and dumping it back into business. Now, bear in mind, when we set that goal, we had a company restructure, because there was a whole group of my squad. And by the way, I'm still good associates with these people. They left mutually. They work for another major player out here in San Antonio, Infinity Gauntlet. Like 1, 2, 3. It was like 6 on my team that left. It was a complete company restructure. This was one of the times we went broke, but it was one of the most uncomfortable times as well, because I actually didn't have a whole lot of money that was scheduled to come in this time. Like, this was like a different broke.
Right.
This wasn't like I'm broke, but I got like 6 deals that are going to cash out soon, so I just got to hold off the next couple weeks. Like, nah, this was, I'm broke, but also my pipeline is looking really, really skinny right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I want y'all to understand where we were when we set that big, hairy, arrogant, disrespectful goal. It wasn't looking too good in the company, and that was only 6 months ago. Right? So the only difference, though, this time is I knew the scripts. I knew the lists. Now I knew that little 2% already.
Right.
And here's the thing. It's only 2%. So it's not hard stuff. Right? Once you learn those things, then you can plug and play anywhere. And it's you get your lists, you get them skip trace. I'm cheap, so I cold call. We mastered cold calling because if I'm cheap, but by the way, I'm gonna commit to it. I'm not gonna be everywhere. We mastered cold calling. So when in my market in San Antonio, if you say Justice Cash Buyers, Earon Bevans, Richard, and Elise, if you talk about our squad, everybody would say, "Oh, they're the ones that cold call, right?" You know what I mean? We just got into SMS and RVMs, and now it's the same thing. All right, we got the cold calling down pat. Now let's hit the SMSs and RVMs, but let's master that now. You know what I mean? But we had already been authorities with cold calling.
Right.
So we focused on that, and so that's how we got to the 6-figure month. It was cold calling, and then we supplemented cold calling with ringless voicemail. And then after all of that money came in, then now we invested in text message blasting, and I'll just go ahead and give this away and tell y'all, because Martine, we were talking about this. When you become an authority in your market, when you start doing what Martine is doing and giving away value will be reciprocated back to you. The market will give you back value. You want to know how you're giving out value? Martine was telling me that you got all these business owners that are like, or people with capital that are now wanting to do business with you, right?
That's correct.
And that's what happened in our business, because I do the podcast, and with doing the podcast, I connected with the CEO and founder of The Smarter Contact. And we did a promo video. We shared it with our audience. I had a promo code. I benefited from that, right? I benefited from that. And it did so well using my promo code. So many people signed up for it that he was like, look, man, the next morning we woke up and there was like hey, Richard, how much money was put in our Smarter Contact credit? Hold on. Come here. Say what's up to Martine. This is Richard Natividad. He's
What's up, Richard?
In 5 months, Richard is closing in on $50,000 just to him. Just to him.
Oh, you the man in these streets.
She said, "You the man in these streets." But he'll tell you how much did he put in our Smarter Contact?
I think he put 100 million. Right now we're like at 99 million.
Oh wow!
Yeah, but because of adding value. So, but that was 100 million credits. Thanks, bro. Appreciate you, man.
See ya.
He put 100 million credits. So now we never ever have to pay for text messaging again. So now we're doing like 3,000-4,000 text messages. You know what I mean? So it's no wonder, we just closed a $30,000 deal using text messages, but it's no wonder, you know what I mean? But anybody can do that.
Right.
Anybody can do that, right? Just start branding yourself and give out value to people.
Right. Well, man, you shared some super valuable content today. If people do not pick up traction after this, I'm going to go pick it back up after this podcast, because it's like, dang, I need to revisit some of this stuff.
It's true. And I would say this, and this is CEO to CEO, Martine. It is a hard read. And I respect you for getting the business consultant. We just dropped 25 G's on business consultation, and I'm not even tripping. Don't get me wrong, like I am tripping about it. I'm not gonna lie. I was trying to be tough. I was gonna say, and I don't even care. No.
Right,
I do. No, but what I'm trying to say is, I'm not worried. I'm not worried because number one, the consultants that we paid are absolutely tried and tested, but I believe in that, and I want to say that I commend you for that. However, I will say this: CEO to CEO, hire it's just like they tell the football players, hire the people to manage your money, but always know what's going on with your money, and be a master of it. And that's what I would say, like for all CEOs. You know what I mean? I recommend hiring a mentor like me and Martine are, but understand what your mentor and your consultant is telling you. Like, you be a student of this. Like I asked Sean Terry this, Martine. I know I'm talking a lot. I know.
No, you're fine. You're giving out so many gems. I'm just gonna hush it up, you know.
I asked Sean Terry. I asked him. I told him, what about the CEOs, the wholesalers? They want to scale, but they don't particularly like sales.
Mm-hmm.
But sales is the lifeblood of this business. But they don't particularly like sales. Are they just doomed to fail or always be mediocre? And because let's say they want to hire out somebody because they just particularly don't like sales. They want to hire somebody, an acquisitions manager who does like sales.
Right.
Here's the challenge though. If you're trying to create a business, you understand that this becomes a challenge. You're now working with people who are not technology. People are not softwares, right? The people who make money are the people who can deal with people, right? And they hire the people who can manage softwares, right? But softwares are easy. People are emotional. People are sporadic. So how do you now, as the CEO who's not the salesperson, motivate the salesperson? Because y'all talk different. Right? Salespeople talk different. They're motivated differently. They think differently than people who are not salespeople. So there's a challenge there. So I asked that to Sean Terry, and Sean Terry was like, well, first of all, that person needs to work on their belief system. You believe you're not a salesperson. He was like, but look, this is what it is, y'all. This is what it is. You got to be a salesperson to run a business.
Right.
And this is what he said. You have to sell your spouse on why they should believe in you. You got to sell your investors on why they should buy your properties. You got to sell people on why they should contract with you and not the other 50,000 wholesalers that have sent them messages and ringless voicemails and cold called them over the past 3 months. Right? You got to sell. And then here's the thing. This is what he said. You have to sell your staff. So when you hire your salesperson, you got to sell them constantly on why they should stay with you. You got to sell them constantly on to believe in themselves. You got to sell them on that, right? And everything you do in business is selling. And then when you want to brand yourself like I am, like the way Martine is, you may not think we're selling you. We are. Every time we get on this podcast, we're selling you. Martine has to persuade you on the do it movement. She's constantly selling the do it movement, persuading the do it movement, right? That's what we do. So you if you want to be a CEO, all of that to say this, if you want to be a CEO, you have to become a salesperson, and you have to become a CEO. In order to become a CEO, you got to learn and talk CEO language. Right. This is CEO language right here. You know what I mean?
So I know you've dropped tons of bombs today. You gave so much value, but what are some other books that have helped you? I know Traction is at the absolute best for the CEO language, but what are some other books that have helped you or some advice you want to give to these people?
Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. One of the greatest quotes is, I'm going to butcher this. One of the greatest Napoleon Hill quotes is at the end of the book. I believe you could take the last 3 pages of Think and Grow Rich and you don't have to read the whole book. I recommend you read the whole book. I'm just trying to make a point. You know what I mean? And he says in his closing words, close to his closing words, he says, both successful and unsuccessful people have negative thoughts. The difference between successful and unsuccessful people is successful people drown out their negative thoughts through relentless action. Right? I was driving past, because we were going to go to worship, and I was driving past a stop sign, and I saw, I don't know what the politically correct term is to call these people. The beggars on the street, the hobo. I don't know if hobo is a respectful word, right? But it was a homeless person, right? But dude, and it's ugly outside. But dude he's not even holding up his sign. He's just sitting down, and his sign is like flapped over, so I can't even read it. And I'm thinking to myself, that's the epitome of I give up. Because you're already begging. Right. right? And I always say, if you're begging, then you have, that's your job.
Right.
So they are employed. They're self-employed, right? They're basically
right?
entrepreneurs. Yeah, they're entrepreneurs. Now it's a shiesty way to get it, but they're entrepreneurs. They're self-employed. Probably not paying taxes on that money that they're getting, right? You know what I mean? So they're shysting everybody.
Right.
But he was just sitting down, and I was thinking to myself, how much despair is he in right now? And my heart went out. How much despair do you got to be in? And so I have felt that before. The only difference was, and I'm not saying I'm better, just different, different. The only difference was I decided to drown out those feelings with relentless action. And I feel like that's like the biggest thing. So Think and Grow Rich, I think, is one of the illest books of all time. Like, I definitely believe. And for those of you who are like, the term rich and wealth, it turns a lot of people off because they immediately think greed. They immediately think you don't have to. Not only rappers and sports athletes are rich and wealthy, because when we watch the VH1 on the Lifetime series about their life, it's like, yo, these people are miserable. These people are so unhappy. And it's like, yeah, they're rich, but are they really successful? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got to be careful about your role models. And so I think that a lot of people in less financially savvy demographics, right? There starts to become, and you don't even realize this, there starts to become a taboo with money. And it's your whole belief system.
Right.
So Think and Grow Rich it helps you to understand that finances are only such a small fraction of riches. Right? There's family, there's spirituality, there's fulfillment. You know what I mean? There's health. Right? These are all major aspects to wealth. Right? We're not just talking about money. Money is just one fraction of it.
Right.
So when you learn to think in abundance, when you learn to think that way, and you learn to switch your thinking, you start to realize that, oh, this money thing is actually, it's just such a small part of it, and it's actually very, very easy. You know what I mean? The hard part is spirituality. That's the hard part, right? The hard part is family. The hard part is health. That's the hard part.
Right.
The money stuff is like, man, that comes with ease after you implement certain things, so.
Okay. Well, thanks for being on the podcast today. Man, you really gave us some gems.
This was fun. This was a lot of fun.
I enjoyed having you on. I want you on again once you consistently hit it.
Let's do it.
It's going to be, you already bring the energy.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy to have you on, and just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And y'all know, we got to have you on the show, Martine.
Hey! Sounds good. I'll bring the energy, I'll bring the energy.
Come on. But real talk, I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing for the community. And I know people are going to benefit from what you're doing. I'm excited to see where you're at in the next couple of years.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. You have any last words for the folks?
Just continue to drown out negative thoughts. Understand that they are not going away. Those bad feelings are not going away. Those insecurities that you feel, they're not going away. If you can trace them back, probably the last 3 years you've been feeling that way. The last 5 years you've been feeling that way. The last 10 years, 15 years you've been feeling that way. It's probably just only other things in your life that have happened that maybe have shown the spotlight on it.
Right.
They're not going to go away. You got to accept that. It's going to rain outside. The only difference is, are you going to take your umbrella? You know what I mean? And the way we do that is by drowning out those negative feelings with consistent action towards a goal. Set your goal, believe you can do it, and drown out negative feelings by constantly acting on that goal. I guarantee you, any of y'all can do what Martine is doing. Any of y'all can do what I'm doing. You just gotta take action. And that's what we're gonna leave them with today. Until next time, Do It Movement listeners. See ya! Let's get it. Thanks, guys, for checking out the Do It Movement podcast this week.
I hope we inspired you to make some power moves now. If you haven't already, make sure you follow us for more info on our guests and new episodes at Do It Movement Pod on Instagram and at doitmovementpod.com. Make sure as you apply some of this knowledge, you tag us along the way by adding #DoItMovement so that we can recognize the change makers. See you next week.